All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of History After Hours podcast. This is episode 7 on October 16th, 2015. We're recording live in front of students. Some of them are looking at me right now. Let's look at them. Hi.
Look how many eyes are on you right now. That's really
that's normal for me, man.
Yeah,
that red glowing eye, scary thing you see in
part of
movies.
the job.
Being a teacher though, you kind of like that though. You know, like people go, "Oh, I can't believe everybody's looking at me." No, we pretty much enjoy the.
I like talking about myself
in the spotlight. Yeah, we just like to talk. Really, that's right.
We have a built-in audience. So my name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me is John Mark Pierce.
Good afternoon. No, it's morning still. Good morning.
And Ron Franklin.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, so this will eventually be on Twitter. You can follow us at History Hours PC, or you can simply go to YouTube. I wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
Find on YouTube.
Get into trouble if you go there. YouTube and type in History After Hours podcast, and at some point this one will be available. So, how's it going?
Hey, fourth one today. This is going to be interesting. Maybe we got some good kids in here today. We've had nice conversations all
like
day.
I just saw you.
We'll see. I know. So this is going to we're becoming closer friends.
All right. So if you'd like, does anybody want to come up, say your name, and ask us a question?
Open us up for a question. Anyone going to go first?
And we'll give our
you
brilliant
ready? You kind of
response.
looked excited. You got a
You're
question?
edging up, yeah.
Okay.
No, you have to come up here.
Your name and question.
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, do it this way.
Hi, I'm Sarah Reynolds, and I was just wondering, what are y'all's viewpoints on school starting later instead of it starting at 8 o'clock like our school does? Maybe it's starting an hour later or so on.
I'll lead us off on this one.
All right.
I drive a school bus. I have to get up at 5:15 every morning to go drive the bus, be back on time, all that kind of stuff. And so if you just look at it that way, I would love for it to start later just so I wouldn't have to get up at such an ungodly hour. But in some schools, northwest Arkansas, like different Springdale schools, they start at 9, and they go obviously till like 4:10. But talking to those people I went to college with that teach there, they really like that just because they say the students are more attentive and they're ready to go because it is later. And so I'm for that. I would rather go later in the day and not have to get up as early.
I've seen some research on that actually that indicates that students, especially this age, our clientele, 16, 17, 18, tend to function better if they've had just a little bit more sleep in the mornings. And so even if it's just a 30-minute difference, sometimes that makes a big difference for folks and whether or not they're ready to sort of engage when we're ready to have them go.
Here's my question, though. If and I guess you could ask this to you kids, if y'all knew y'all didn't have to get up as early, would you stay up later? No? Okay, I didn't. Okay, I didn't know. I was just a...
Well, I live 45 minutes away, and I'm a morning person, so I don't mind the mornings. What I would dread is that drive. That drive home is horrific. I don't mind coming up here because I'm listening to a podcast or the radio, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the day and all that. But that drive home, I'm ready to get home.
Doesn't the later hour exit from the building, doesn't that also interrupt like after school activities? Like if you have any extracurricular sports or let's say it's drama or whatever it happens to be, like that puts that another notch later, and those students are already, let's say that
missing class anyway.
Yeah, they're missing time, but then it's later for them to get home to do homework, or it's later for them to get home to some kids have jobs after school. Maybe that puts them at a disadvantage. Maybe the earlier release time is better, so therefore it's okay to be a little sleepy at the beginning if we can end on time to get them off to other things.
Well, on the flip side of that same coin, some schools in Memphis and then some in Springdale start at 7. They start earlier, and so which they end at 2 and gives more time for these other activities.
Here's what I'd like to do. I would rather go an extra 2 hours Monday through Thursday and then take off completely on Friday.
I could agree with that.
That would, some people do that too.
That saves the school a lot of money
too. It saves
too.
like $250,000 a year.
Well, you're not busing, and you don't have the electricity, you don't have the extra food, and you don't have that's a thought.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Sarah Reynolds.
What? Just out of curiosity, or do you advocate one way or the other, or do you like it the way it is?
Well, I've been researching it a little bit, so I'm an advocate for it. And on the after-school activities...
Here, come up here so that way everybody can hear you.
She's been researching it, and she's an advocate for it. And?
I've been an advocate for it. I've been looking at Ohio and...
For later, you're saying?
Yeah,
okay.
Later, maybe at Lakeside, this school. For example, in Ohio, one of the main arguments is bus drives, and they actually, by switching, saved a lot of money by changing how they drove their buses. I'm not sure how that worked. But also having on after-school activities, for example, football and athletics, you could have it in the morning, which actually helps the mind start and work and pump blood and all that good stuff to get ready for learning. So that actually might be an advantage.
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'll
Just do that stuff first
Yeah.
and then get going. So a little creativity and a little physical activity as well, right?
For the mind.
You know,
Yeah,
actually,
that's interesting.
If we want to do what's best for learning, we need to get rid of that 2.5 month break we have in the summer and spread it out throughout the year. It would be what you would call year-round education, and most of you would not be for that. And most teachers definitely wouldn't be for that because we like that big break.
I don't know. Do you think that they wouldn't be for it, or just show of hands, and then we'll see? Like, how many of you would be for year-long school as opposed to the summer break?
Well, isn't the
A
theory
few hands
they
are
go
going
for
up.
like 6 weeks and they're off for 3 or
Well, yeah,
something?
and the difference is
You get the same amount of school time.
it's the same amount of days. Like by law, you have to be in school 180 days in this state, and so we still would have 180 days. We would just break it up differently rather than having that span in the summertime. We go to school a month and then we have a week out and then we go whatever. So those days would still be in there. They would just be broken up incrementally, and therefore you don't have one of the arguments against the way we do it now is that there's this loss of ability. Like you retrograde.
Remember when you come back to school in August and you're trying to learn how to ride again and it feels weird? That's because of that huge break. And really who it hurts are the kids with bad parents or kids with no parents or kids that aren't learning during the summer. Because there's a big chunk of kids that will be traveling and they're still learning. But there's a large group of kids that don't do anything during the summer, for whatever reason. So the argument is the achievement gap that begins in kindergarten to first grade gets wider and wider every summer that comes and goes. So I don't know how much research has been done on that. There has been some research, I'm sure, on the achievement gap happening during the summer.
Does it have to be a statewide thing, or can school districts do it themselves, just to choose to do that, or does it have to be mandated?
I don't know. I don't know if you could just.
We set our own school day.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the school can do it. I think they'll come up with their calendar, so I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And the main pushback is going to be from teachers, not students.
I would be good with having the 2 months we're off start right around Thanksgiving because that coincides with duck season. And so that's good for me, but no one else would want that, but I would.
No.
So anyway.
All right. Anybody have anything else
that was
they'd
good.
like to?
Yeah, come on.
Yep.
Figure will spark a good conversation. Yes, it's my
Say your
birthday
name.
present. Nick Clayton, and I wanted to ask, what do you think the most influential historical event within the past 10 years is?
10 years.
I was thinking like post-Renaissance or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, recent history. Most did you say most influential? Is that what you said?
Single event. What single event is most influential?
I would say
Worldwide?
Arab Spring. All of the calamity that's happening with the dictators being overthrown in North Africa and across the Middle East and the series of wars. I mean, we
It's
can.
not a single event, but yeah.
Well, it's a grouping of. We're going to group it together as a single event, and when we study it in history later on, we will look back at that and go, this is a continuous event. So I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I can argue that it's going to be studied that way, the same way we study the 100 Years' War. It's not a single event; it's a series of things that have been put together
Right.
to study it that way. So I think that this is a continuance of events that we will lump together. So to me, I think that the idea that we're seeing long-held territories and countries that have been ruled over by dictators and seeing them being overthrown by their own people or by a coalition of forces that have come against them, then and the calamity that tends to happen, like the idea is that the people are more free and the dictators are gone, and now they have this process and they can be more like the Western countries. But what we've seen happen is that they've actually gone to war with each other over who's going to be in charge now that guy is gone, and it's been there are a lot of pivotal countries that are really important to our well-being internationally and even security here at home, that are really on the verge of major calamities. And then you can look specifically at what's happened in Iraq since we've overthrown, and in Afghanistan since we've gone in, and now in Syria that we've tried to participate in the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad.
I was going to say that I think this might not be the most influential, but I think it needs to be brought up for discussion, the idea of once we pulled out of Iraq, the uprising of ISIS and everything. I think that's something that needs to be
But before you get ISIS, that's part of what I'm saying.
Okay.
Before you get that, you have them arguing with each other about who is going to be in charge and how they're going to divide out the powers of government. And when they can't come to a consensus, then they start arguing and fighting, and then that leaves room for radicalization and the rise of ISIS. So those violent factions that were sort of waiting in the wings anyway are now taking full advantage of the fact that we have chaos, and then it turns into anarchy.
I agree.
Right. So that's the first one that comes to mind.
Unless Trump becomes president, and then that
would be
that's going to
most influential.
more worldwide influence. All right. Anything else? It doesn't have to be about history,
Yeah.
although it can be.
Tatum, did you want to go? Did you want to go next? You can go next.
Well, seeing how Obama's near the end of his line, how do you think he actually did during his terms as president?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
He's not going to go down as one of the greatest presidents, and he's not going to go down as one of the worst presidents. I think he'll be right in the middle of the pack. If I had to bet on, he's done some things that I think will last. But I think people, no president, very few presidents have enjoyed a second term. If you just look at the presidents that got reelected, we forget Obama actually won re-election in 2012. And it seems like everyone's against him now, which for whatever reason, and maybe they're right to be so. But I think as a history teacher, trying to look at it as objectively as possible, I think he'll be somewhere in the middle of the pack.
I think it's too soon to tell too, because usually it's going to take us about 15 to 20 years looking back on something to see all the ins and outs of it, and a lot of the information that's very classified right now because he's still in office. When those things become more public, then you can make better determinations on what's actually happened in the presidency, and then make judgments on whether or not you think that he was a good one or a bad one.
So here's a question: do you put a middle of the road, not bad, not great president on money because he was the first African American president? Because you have this discussion right now, which woman is going to be put on the money? Should you put the first African American middle of the road president on money?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It was a big step for equality and civil rights in our country for the masses to elect an African American president. Yeah. And even though he is so unpopular now inside our borders, if you leave our country, a lot of countries really like Obama.
What's his approval rating right now? Just out of curiosity.
Probably.
Well, but it seemed to have bottomed out, and then I want to say that it's risen again recently, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's right around 48%.
I think it also depends on who you ask. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Fox News poll, it's like 22%.
Yeah, according to Fox, he's
right.
Right.
But if you look at George W. Bush, he was not popular at all.
Bush had dismal numbers his second term.
But but if you ask kids, they don't know that. They don't remember how he was a laughing stock.
Reagan's numbers went down his second term.
Yep. Of course, Reagan got divine somewhere in the early 2000s. I don't, so you never know how a president's going to be remembered.
It may, partly to answer your question too, it may be in who is doing the determination factor, right? Who's writing the history books about him, and do we have to a certain extent, we have an agenda when we write history books about how things should be. Like, is it open-minded enough to say, here are the positive things that happened through his administration, here are the negative things, or do we go like we did with, like has sort of happened culturally with the Reagan? He's become this mega star, even though he had some really interesting issues, pro and con, through the course of his presidency. So how we choose to remember it may be different than how it really is.
That's what we debated, I guess, a few podcast episodes ago now, is that Ronald Reagan, if he ran on the same principles he ran at in 1980 or 84, he would not get elected as the Republican candidate.
It would be difficult today, I think, because his record is not going to be something that he can hold up to the radical side of the Republican Party that seems to be dictating what's going on. as far as their direction, and I don't think that they would support him today. He would be too moderate, I think, in their opinion.
All right. Next.
Tell us your name and your question.
I'm Tatum Newman, and my question is basically, what's your point of view on school lunches? I know that Michelle Obama changed certain laws where we can only have certain like amounts of sodium and other things inside our school lunches, and I know at our own school, our lunches are very small. Like there's 5 tater tots and maybe a hamburger, and that's it.
Very good. I will say this: our lunches, I guess y'all's lunches are a lot better than what most schools get, because with the adding of Chartwell's doing the lunches, y'all are very, very not very.
Oh my goodness, I've been at schools where they didn't get.
Yeah,
any.
y'all are very lucky to have that. But I guess the idea of the whole school lunch health craze isn't necessarily flawed, but I think where the disconnect is they don't understand that, these kids, they're growing, a lot of them play sports, a lot of them are going out doing exercising, and they need something to refill that energy level, which, arguably aren't getting with what you're getting in school right now.
Well, to standardize anything is tough. I mean, a 200-pound football player is going to need more calories for lunch than a 90-pound girl who doesn't play any sports.
Right.
I mean, that's a big difference in calories. And so it's hard just to say, okay, everybody gets this amount, and that's the healthiest. I mean, I think you might have to have limits as far as sodium and sugar and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think kids need to eat.
But to say everybody, like you're saying, gets this much, whereas
I mean, this
person might eat this much, but this guy might eat.
If you really
double
want to
that.
get healthy about it, then you need to individualize the thing, which is nearly impossible to do. I mean, maybe if you play sports and you weigh this much, then this is your.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that in an institutionalized program that you can actually cater that the way that it would need to be to say it was truly 100% as healthy as it could be.
I mean, I used to be a fitness guy a long time ago. But I designed, nutrition plans for people for them to cycle down to get to 4% body fat and go on stage and all that. And it was everybody was completely different. Like you had to look at their body type. Are they endomorphic or mesomorphic, which means do they gain fat easily? Do they gain muscle easily? Or are they called a hard gainer? They don't gain anything. Everything's so different. Mm-hmm. It's all based on basically genetics. And that's what that would,
But I think I go back to what you're saying, though. I think that you need to have some sort of standard about not giving, we're not going to feed you Cheetos every day because that's not,
right.
It may taste great, but that's not what is going to be the most healthy thing for you. Did you have a comment? Yeah, come on. Oh, okay.
Well, just having a nutritional top plan, something rich in nutrition, that would be, and then calorie-wise, some kids are just going to need more calories than others. I mean, I'd tell you what, if I was a football player, there's no way I could eat school lunch and then really 3 hours later be a good football player. And I would be bringing food every day.
Here's part of what I think that isn't taken into consideration. Regardless of what we do here, we only see you for 7 or 8 hours a day, and you only eat lunch for 30 minutes here. That's what we're responsible for. But what you do outside of this institution and how you eat is really going to be the bigger determining factor on what your health conditions are going to be. So we can do our part, but if we look at this as a nationwide issue about trying to provide a healthier services for our citizens, then there has to be some personal responsibility about understanding what you're really consuming outside of what we can do, and trying to make healthy choices there too. It has to be part of it. So maybe we, along with what we do, we also provide better education on nutritional upkeep.
Yeah, and then you've got the whole controversy about the food we're actually eating, what's in it, and who's got control of this food supply. And
have you seen? I mean, we can talk about like in New York. Remember when? Who was the guy? It was somebody. I guess it was in New York City, where they were banning certain size soft drinks. Like you can't buy the big gulps, and people went out of their minds. They're like, "No, you can't tell me. Government can't tell me. I can't drink soda pop, boy." And so they were like all mad that they couldn't drink a gallon of soda. But so really, I guess you could if you wanted to just
refill it,
drink it up, and that'll help curb the surplus population that we have. I guess if you do that enough times. So maybe there's that point that we want to make too.
What's also funny is if you go to Europe and you eat a chicken breast with your meal, the size of it compared to ours is so funny to me, because ours, just if you buy chicken at Walmart, it's humongous. How big was this chicken that they had to slaughter? I mean, it's it's huge. You go to Europe, they don't have some of that stuff. I mean, certain countries do, I'm sure, but I just think our food in general in the United States is more processed, more unhealthy.
And we have a volume of intake that is beyond most other countries too. We
Yes.
I mean, look at the way that things are advertised, right? Like, have you seen the burger commercial and stuff, and they'll see this gigantic monster burger with cheese and goo dripping off it, and it looks freaking delicious. But that's the point. They want it to look good. But really, you shouldn't consume that. There's no way that that's healthy for you. But it's going to taste freaking good. That's going to be, so that's about it. We want it to taste good. We don't care what it does to us after the fact. It's worth
that
the risk.
place called the Heart Attack Grill or something like that?
Oh,
it's like a 7,000 calorie burger, and someone actually died of a heart attack in that
What?
place.
Did it
Eating-
get closed down after that?
I don't think so.
That's not our fault you ate yourself to death.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into when you come in here.
Right.
Or
It's
what
on.
about-
It's the name of the place.
It's the
There's a
name.
place in Amarillo, Texas, where, and I think they do this in other states too, where because I've seen big billboards. And if you can eat this, half a cow,
Yeah.
they'll give it to you for free, but you have to do it all at that same time, and people will actually do that. And I imagine,
Big Texan in Amarillo.
I imagine people who move into this country or visit us who don't see that kind of consumption, and they look at us, and there has to be this. They have to shake their heads about what we do, and of course we're.
I had a 16-year-old foreign exchange student from Germany who came here, stayed 1 year, and gained, I want to say, 18 pounds.
Holy cow.
And she went back, and she was like, that American food, it'll kill you. Like, I can't survive. I gained 18 pounds just being there a year. And this is a girl who probably weighs 125 and ended up weighing well over 140 and then had to lose it. And then when she got back in Europe, within just a few months, she'd lost it all.
Wow.
And
Well-
she wasn't trying to exercise. I mean, it's just we are. And of
We
course,
but we allow that.
Yes.
We allow there to be massive amounts of sugar, massive amounts of sodium, massive amounts of fat, and that's just part of it. And so you take the same. Let's say you go to a restaurant here, this name brand sit down restaurant, and you'll go, if you go and look at the nutritional statistics on it, it's loaded with more salt than you're supposed to have in like 3 weeks. Some of these meals, but you take that same restaurant and you cross the border over into Canada, and you look at the nutritional chart there. They don't allow that crap there. They don't allow that to do it. So we're actually. From a flavor, that's why I go back to what I was saying a while ago about taste. It's about the flavor more than it is about what you're actually eating.
we get
we
your
are
body gets
so
addicted to that
used
sugar,
to-
and salt thing.
But
the
it's
problem is, places like Red Lobster, they're endless shrimp, that kind of stuff.
the buffet.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They'll lose money when I go to the buffet because I'll keep eating.
Right.
That's part of the point.
Oh man, yeah.
Right.
I slowly, when we go to England and Paris and stuff like that, I slowly starve that week because I just can't. I'm so used to ingesting more food.
Yeah.
But it's probably better for me.
Well, yeah. Probably.
All right.
All right. That was a good one.
Next.
Here it comes.
Man, those shorts.
Were you in here earlier? Okay.
All right. Who's your favorite historical figure?
This is Austin Simmons, by the way, and he is rocking some shorts that I can't really describe.
Louis the 14th is my favorite historical figure.
Why?
Because he loved himself, and I love myself, and I can see a lot of similarities there. But no, I just love.
I want you to start wearing wigs like he did then. I want you to get that big
Is that a ball
pumped
joke?
up.
Is that a?
No, he wore wigs.
Yeah, I know.
He did have. He was also prematurely balding though. But
No,
but I'm saying that if you're gonna be like
Right.
that guy, then be like that guy.
Right. No, I guess that part of the reason why Louis the 14th is one of my favorites is because just what he did for teaching AP art history, what he did for art, and what he various other things is the reason why he's my favorite.
Mm.
I guess his just attitude about everything.
I have not thought about this. It'd be easy for me to say a founding father to some degree because I like that time period, but I don't know. Michael Jordan, he'll be in the history books, right?
Oh, he's good. I do like Michael Jordan.
I was a big fan of Jordan.
I was too.
That came at a perfect place in my life when I was playing ball, and then he was playing. Arkansas was good. That was a nice time period. But
See, I was like 6
Oh,
when
yeah.
Jordan was. That's why. So
I was
that's why.
32 years old.
Everybody
And,
wanted to be like Mike. Everybody wanted to be. The first time I saw when
why I'm
he
a
when
Bulls
he
fan today,
when
'cause
he
Michael
first
Jordan.
came out of North Carolina and stepped up into the NBA and he won the slam dunk contest. That's when I really first started. Were you paying attention to things when he did that? Like he
What
when
year?
it was
88?
80
Oh,
yeah,
when
late
he had
80s. I don't know. But
the-
he came out and he jumped up from like way back and then stepped up in the air like there was an invisible escalator, and so he like kept climbing, and it was this weird moment where the man looked like he was flying, and it was just this amazing moment.
That's
Sticking
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I
So
think
it
that's when he was
cool.
going against Dominique Wilkins. He ended up edging him out with this jump from the free throw line.
He could jump over the world. He's good.
And then there was the whole Monstars saving the alien race from the. That was big for Jordan. Looney Tunes. You saw
Oh,
Space
Space
Jam?
Jam.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
All right, so no, pick a guy though. Pick a historic. Well, I mean,
Oh,
from
man.
that's sports history, sure.
I don't know. Why don't you go and I'll keep thinking.
I'm going to go European history, and I'm going to say Otto von Bismarck, the guy who
Really?
single-handedly brought Germany together.
So that surprised me. I thought you'd go with somebody else.
Why? Who'd you think I was?
I don't know. I just.
Like Hitler, who single-handedly brought Germany together.
Well, stick with Germany. No.
Who would
Yeah,
I
no,
thought
I like-
you
I
would
like
have
that
gone
guy.
with? I obviously thought you would have gone with some American guy. but-
Yeah, I don't know. I like Teddy Roosevelt. He was an interesting figure. He was a walking contradiction, and he did a ton of stuff. He was only president for less than 2 terms, really. He finished out McKinley's, got reelected. He was only elected once to president, and he got a ton of stuff done. And I don't know if it was, you got to look. Progressivism had his own
Do
party.
you think that even though he's a progressive-minded guy and a muckraker to a certain extent, don't you think that he is sort of the guy that puts us on the course for empire?
Yes, American imperialism. He's number, what is he on my wall, y'all? 20? So on my wall of influence for Americans, he comes in at 20, and I give him credit for American imperialism. I mean, we give him a bulk of credit for progressivism, American imperialism, Panama Canal.
Right.
That's the 3 things that
Sets us up.
to do. Sets us up for empire.
I figured you'd have gone with somebody like around the Crusades, like Charlemagne or somebody like that.
I was thinking Napoleon.
Yeah, I dig some Charlemagne too, but no, and here's why I like Bismarck more than those guys. But I guess Napoleon would be a close second.
I like Napoleon too.
To bring together the Germany doesn't really exist without that guy, without his manipulation, without his political cohesiveness, without his ability to ally and then to structure that out and then to be willing enough to do what he needed to do militarily to force that to be what it is. I mean, it does not happen without him. And so when you think about game changers, like the rise of Germany changes everybody's status immediately. And so I think that's why I focus on him. And, he was smart enough to know he knew it wasn't a gamble on his aspect too. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he tried to achieve, and he was manipulative too. But he was a very brilliant guy. So when you have other people forever trying to bring those people together, when you have Prussia and you have the larger regions and all the Germanic territories that came out of the 30 Years' War and all the like 300 and something different entities trying to bring themselves together, and then they end up competing out. You have Austria on the southern end, and then you have this one guy who will, within just a matter of 20 years or so, bring all that together to make them not just a country, but a world power almost instantly. I think that's you have to give credit to him. That's why I like him best.
Okay, there you go. Anybody else?
Changed my answer to Harry Carey. He was being the Cubs fan. Yeah, he's gonna be mine. Okay,
Back, get it.
Yeah. And what do you guys think about medical marijuana? Not medical, just marijuana being legalized in general, like the benefits.
Say a little closer to the mic. I'm not sure it's picking you up.
Alright. What do you guys think of marijuana, medical or recreational, like its benefits?
Medical or recreational? Which one? Or both?
Either which one, like, do you
Okay,
think
alright.
better, or in general, which one? Like,
Okay.
what do you think of it as a usefulness or its benefits?
I said just in terms of legalization. You know what? I think it's to the point where, and this isn't necessarily something I promote, but legalize it, tax it just as much as you do alcohol and cigarettes, and I've never heard of somebody attacking someone because they were high on marijuana or anything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's in our future. I think we're headed that way. We already have states that have passed it, and so that's usually where it starts. If you look at any movement that we've had, it usually starts in the states, and then once 2, 3, 4, 5 states, then eventually there'll be a national law.
Here's what I find interesting about those state. The federal government doesn't recognize it, but those states do. And so theoretically, if the federal government wanted to, they have this big long list of all these people who've bought marijuana. If they
Hey, they
wanted
go
to.
into California and break up those dispensaries and stuff.
Right.
Because
It's still a federal crime, even
Right.
though the states have brought it on. So, but all right. So focus. Start with medical marijuana first. What do you think about that?
And this is me not knowing much about it. Is there hard, reliable evidence that does medically advance?
Yeah. Well, all right. So let me
Is there
jump in here on
research on that.
I've had personal friends, even my own age, who have battled some pretty serious conditions. I had a friend who died from leukemia and fought that for years and years. And one of the problems with the treatment for the condition that he had was that the massive amounts of radiation that he had to do. He had chemotherapy, he had spot radiation treatments and all that, and it really took his appetite was suppressed because of it. He didn't feel well. He was nauseous all the time, and that's going to make a huge difference. If he were allowed to have medical marijuana, then his appetite would have been stronger, and he wouldn't have been as nauseous as he normally was. And so I think that maybe that would have helped him to have a better quality of life overall. Now, not saying that he wants to sit around and be high all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that makes a difference.
So we have this mass exodus of
Of
students
band
that
members.
apparently are in band, and they have to leave right now during our podcast. So we'll see you on the other side. Do well. So today is homecoming here at Lakeside High School. So everybody's pretty active, and everybody's hyper, and we're ready to get this homecoming thing. Man, I know as a coach, I used to hate homecoming. It disrupts everything.
Yep.
And there's always, I don't know, when do I've got to go to a homecoming in Gurdon tonight
Why?
because my stepdaughter she's in kindergarten and she's walking.
Ah,
She's one of the
I
kindergartners.
see.
She was the princess or whatever. So I've got to go pay homage. Do y'all do homecoming? Is the homecoming ceremonies before the game?
Yeah, that's what the parade and the pep rally and stuff is.
See, that's not as bad. I used to be at a school where it was at halftime.
See, ours was before the football game.
Yeah,
And that
before's
disrupted
better.
that disrupted our practice,
pregame and-
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, so anyhow, we're doing homecoming today.
All right,
we'll
so but medical marijuana, like I said, I can see much more advocacy for that because, especially for someone who is suffering. Especially for someone who is suffering, I don't see that there is any justification for keeping them from being able to have a better quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, no matter if it's medical or recreational, there's going to have to be some red tape involved. There's going to have to be some laws passed. There's going to be some regulation, just like anything else. So it'll be a process.
All right, so what about recreational use then?
I think we would treat it just the way we treat alcohol. Age limits and restrictions about driving and, probably
Can
the
you
same.
can you just like you with alcohol? Can you test the level of marijuana in terms of?
No, I think so, yeah.
You know,
I don't know how quick of a test they've got.
Like you can't, like a breathalyzer kind of thing?
Right? Can you do
I don't
that?
know.
What would that be? DWI's driving while
It would still
intoxicated.
be-
Would that be
it-
DWH driving while high? Is that
Well, it's
how-
still it's
Yeah.
while intoxicated, so it's still a
Still,
DUI.
okay.
DUI.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke. I was just.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's the thing.
Okay.
If you roll down your window and a puff of smoke comes out, that's probably a good sign.
As far as an intoxicant, there are worse ones, I suppose, but at the same time, there is something to be said for the idea of legalizing something that has clinically been shown to decrease your ability to think clearly over time. Something that is a demotivator, that people will eventually get to the point where that's all they want to sit around and do. Whereas I know people who can be, and I'm not advocating drinking over anything. Just saying that I know that that as an intoxicant, people can and do function differently under that substance, and you don't see that becoming as problematic. And if you become full alcoholic, I understand that.
Right.
So I guess there's a danger in it either way you go.
Just to decriminalize it certainly has some positive effects.
It clears out some of the judicial backlog that we have too.
All the
and-
people that are in jail,
Mhm.
or whatever. So I don't know. There'll be some regulations. All right, Sarah.
Comment?
A lot of people compare the prohibition to marijuana and how it isn't legalized. Do you think that's an accurate description of it? Or do you think there's a lot of different factors that contribute to both that separates it majorly?
I missed the first part of the question.
Prohibition. Is this a form of prohibition?
Oh, okay.
When prohibition came on in this country, we created, with a single piece of legislation, a nation of criminals,
Yep.
Yeah.
and promoted bootlegging and people who were going to go around and get that. So part of what we can say then is we're arguing this out or discussing it is, do the current laws that we have that criminalize marijuana, are they effective? Do they work? Are they keeping anybody who wants it from getting it? That's something that's we could maybe look at. It'd probably be opinion surveys or something we'd have to do. But
I mean, there's a
know.
level of self-responsibility that you have to have no matter what you do. And, we talked earlier about how marijuana became illegal in the first place because of the manufacture of hemp and all that stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I think you have to regulate it. You have to, I don't know. It's going to happen, I think.
I think it's at the point now where, yeah, it will.
It'll probably start with the medical side first, but then I think eventually it'll happen.
All right. Anybody else want to ask a question? We've got time for maybe one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have somebody that's going to add to the topic.
Tatum, who asked us a question earlier, is going to elaborate for us.
I have a parent who lives in Colorado, and he has his own business, and ever since it's been legalized, he got back on medical. He has not seen a decrease in sales for his business because of it, or taken an impact on his business because of it. So it has not really affected him, and he works the same. He says he only does it after work and then before work to help with his back. So I know y'all were talking about the
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. That's very good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody is going to deal with it in their own way. I mean, some people, there's probably people that can drink alcohol every night but still function the next day. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that can't handle it and can't do that.
I think that goes back to what you were saying about body types to begin with when you were thinking about nutritional aspects. Anything that you're consuming into your body is going to have some sort of effect in your body type, and the way that you metabolize things is going to make a difference on how it affects you. So that could be the same thing with this.
And it's also, there's mental stuff too. I mean, addiction and all that stuff. I don't know where the line is drawn as far as medical goes.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, people get addicted to food. People get addicted.
We have all sorts
TV,
of addictions. Yeah.
So I mean, we're not gonna ban those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the direction we're headed. It'll be legal at some point. This is an issue that seems like would be a good idea for Republicans to get behind, because they're for individual liberty and freedom and small government. This would be, but they can't for several reasons. But it could have been an issue that they could have used to try to
gain some people
on their side.
Because I know a lot of people would support that.
Right.
I went to college with a guy. He was a great guy. He was really hardcore, super conservative, but he was homosexual. And he said, he said, even though I agree with everything Republicans stand for, I can't vote for them because they don't accept the whole legalization of homosexual marriages. And so I said that to say this. At the same time, I feel like a lot of people who are hardcore supporting of legalization of marijuana would do the same thing. So like you're saying, I agree with what you're saying. That would be something that could really help their case.
Yep. All right. Anything else before we wrap this up?
How do you feel about gay marriage?
Okay, now we're getting controversial. In Arkansas, and
just repeat it because I don't know that it picked up.
Okay, she's gonna
Tell us your name. What your question was.
My name's Mary, and how do y'all feel about gay marriage?
Like the legalization aspect of it?
Yeah, what's y'all's perspective on how it would reflect everybody else in the future?
We can also talk about this this Kim Davis woman that was in Kentucky, that the clerk that was denying people the right to, and she wasn't passing out any marriage licenses based on the fact that she disagreed with the same-sex marriage.
Well, I think no matter what we think personally or what our religious views are and all that, I think you can argue it from a historical perspective that it's a civil rights issue.
It is a civil rights issue. That's what it boils down to.
And it's
everything else is semantics. You can argue and get mad if you want. Oh, I believe this and that. Whatever. It's marriage definitions have changed throughout history. There's never been this one singular. It's got to be this. Every culture decides for itself what that's going to mean, and so we're deciding for ourselves right now what that means. And because it hasn't been traditional, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be. So if you look at it from a constitutional civil rights issue, this is a denial of rights to keep people from doing that. So again, regardless of how people feel about it personally. And besides the fact that the Supreme Court has now ruled on it and said that it is legal, people who are in the business of working within the government agencies that are dealing with that, they have to comply with the law. And what bothers me, just to kind of tie in with what that is, maybe think of something else. We've had multiple Republican candidates who said, well, good for Kim Davis, good for her to stand up for what she believes. And fine, and she's welcome to believe what she believes, and I get that. But to have a presidential candidate to step up and say that you should actually defy the law in this particular instance, I think is I think it's counterintuitive and it's counterproductive for their cause, because you are denying someone their civil rights, and we've had civil rights movements in this country multiple times now, and this is just the next phase in that. So it's something that needs to go forward, and people just really, you're gonna have to swallow it and get over your hard feelings about that if you happen to have bad feelings about that, because it is an issue.
But also, I find slightly ironic.
That's not going to go away.
Kim Davis thing is, she had no. She's going to cite her religious beliefs for the problem of not handing out gay marriage licenses, I bet she had no problem handing out divorce decrees or whatever. But now she's going to cite her.
That's always funny when people talk about holy matrimony and they're on their fourth marriage.
That's right.
Well, but more specifically, she is a county clerk. Her job is to do, and so regardless of what your religious beliefs are, that's a government position, and you voluntarily took that job, and so you cannot mix those two things. Your personal opinion doesn't matter. What's legal is what's legal, and if you don't like that, then you can work to change the law. But right now, you have to work inside that process.
Right. Okay, this is probably the last. You talk about this?
Okay.
Okay, my name is Brianna, and what do you think about the protection of those rights? Because yes, you can get married as a homosexual now, but you can go to the works the next day and your boss can see a picture of your husband or your wife on your desk and you can get fired for it.
I don't think legally that can be a thing. Well, I mean, I know it does happen, but what they would, you can bring that to court, and I think you have a stance, especially now that the Supreme Court has ruled on it. If that happens to someone, then they have legal justification to bring a suit against them, a civil a denial of civil liberties suit, and that business can be in trouble. So that's something that, but we've had this interesting movement on the other side where people are like, well, my religious beliefs along with my business need to matter too. So they have that argument, but I think that the courts are going to have to weigh in ultimately to see where that's going to go.
So we had more time for that because that would be a good thing. Who has more freedom?
That's like saying back in the day, I say that I was married to anybody who's non-white. And then I had that picture on my desk, and my boss said, well, you can't work here because I don't believe in that. Well, see, that's not something we allow to stand. And so this is going to be the same thing. You cannot judge my performance. Now, if I'm a bad employee, that's different. But just to judge it solely on whom I'm married to, that's not going to fly. And so there'll be lawsuits against that. And there should be.
Yes, if you're going to talk, you have to talk into the mic. Yes.
Like the other day in Mr. Pierce's class, we was talking about how this lady wouldn't sell this gay couple like a cake.
Mm-hmm.
But like I can understand that it's not her belief or her religion, but like that's kind of insulting to the couple, and like it really shouldn't matter. That's like with interracial relationships. And so it's just like it really shouldn't matter just as long as you're happy and like they treat you.
In this country at one time, if you were married to someone of Indian origin, and I mean Native American, or let's say Indian outside of, from India, or to someone who was black, then they could and did do harmful things to you based on that. It was very prejudicial. But we've eliminated those ideas in society, and so this is one of those next step kind of things. It's a long time coming. But just to even have a conversation about the right to be a free, active homosexual in this country is something that we've been afraid of as a country for a long time. So we've been taking baby steps towards this. So I think that it's going to pan itself out. But again, there may be some more legal action that has to happen before that finally does. There'll be this moment of acceptance that will finally take, and I think the nation as an entity is closer to that point than we are away from it.
All right, and with that, we are going to have to say goodbye. This wraps up another episode of History After Hours podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at History Hours PC, and this is episode 7.
7.
Woo! Goodbye.